Well, good morning. Today it's Valentine's Day. Do you believe in Valentine? Do you celebrate it? Should a Christian be involved with it? What's it all about and where did it all begin? You may know that in the early church there were particularly outstanding men and women who served the Lord and were marked by the church in general and called saints. They were kind of given a status that in the New Testament was given to everybody, but because of their outstanding qualities of character, love, and usually some supernatural, miraculous working, they were known as saints. It kind of set them apart from everyone else. Now, Protestants, like myself, don't generally hold with that distinction, but we recognise that in the history of the church there have been people, and that's the name that they've been given. The particular man who interests us is a man called Valentine. Valentine was quite a common name in the Roman Latin world, and the Valentine we're interested in lived in the 2nd, 3rd century. He was a pastor of a church north of Rome, about half hour's drive, in a place called Terni. And Valentine had a ministry of compassion. He cared for prisoners and for soldiers. And one of the things that he helped soldiers do was to find a bride and to get married. The story of Valentine's involvement with the supernatural is that he was brought up before a judge on the charge of following his own religion rather than the state religion, and therefore he was going to be condemned. But the judge had a daughter who was blind, and Valentine prayed for her and she received her sight. It didn't sway the judge's sentiment because Valentine was still condemned to death, and he wrote a pastoral letter to this woman who'd been healed and who'd now become a follower of Jesus herself. And he finished the note with, "Your Valentine." Well, his date when he was remembered within the church calendar was February the 14th. And from a long time, from the 3rd century right through to the 14th, it was simply another saint's day, St. George and St. Polycarp and St. Andrew, St. David's, St. Valentine. However, in the 14th century, the English poet Geoffrey Chaucer injected a new note into the way that Valentine was understood. So here in the Parliament of Fowls, Geoffrey Chaucer mentions that it was on St. Valentine's Day, when every fowl cometh there to choose her mate of every kind. That's the first mention of Valentine and romantic love being united. And it was Chaucer who captured the imagination of his contemporaries, who were all into courtly love and chivalry and knightly nobleness and so on. And that spirit of romance was injected into the British culture, and that is the root of the modern celebration of Valentine's Day. Well, that idea that the birds chose their mate on Valentine sparked English imagination, and they began to express romantic affection around the date of Valentine. Of course, in the 17th, 18th century, cards, flowers, gifts began to be exchanged, and now in the modern world that we live in, it's become extremely popular, not just with Christians, but with people at large. And should we celebrate it? Well, absolutely. It's the only Saints' Day that I really take that seriously. Well, this year we're going to have to stretch our imagination beyond the restaurant and the browsing in shops to find something suitable by way of a gift or an expression of love for whoever it is. But that's not a bad thing, is it? For us who are married, we express our love to our wives or husbands. If you're engaged or in a relationship, you have someone. But if you're not in a relationship, it's a good time to remember and celebrate being single and the gift of God's love for you. It's a time when we can perhaps reach out and think of people who need a little bit of friendship. Remember, Valentine dealt with soldiers, he dealt with prisoners, he dealt with people who were in real need because of the circumstances that they were in. On lockdown, loneliness depression, insularity are real issues. So why not reach out to somebody and just express your love this Valentine's?